Okay, let's start with the session. Right. So first, let me introduce myself. So my name is Rahul, and I've been training in AWS for the past 1 year, and and I'm also been recognized as the AWS Cloud Captain from India, where Cloud Captain is also one of the major focus from AWS advocacy team, and I'm one among the 10 captains in India. And I conduct events in AWS, and I also master students to get certified and to get to knowledge about basic AWS concepts and get to know about how they can move further into AWS certifications too. And not only in terms of certifications, how far the environment, how far the companies are looking for a cloud, looking from the cloud architect or a cloud support engineer, what companies are majorly looking for, and what are the key stacks, tech stacks you should have. So the entire thing I've been training for the last 1 year, and I've been associated with two to three colleges, and I teach to students. And I also make them to get certified in AWS CLF and AWS Developer Associate, and as well as Solution Architecture. And moreover, I'm an AML person where I work in AIML plus cloud plus ML ops too, and I also teach AIML too. Right. So let me get into the part and what's the agenda of today? Right. I'm going to discuss about what is cloud computing is all about. Why? Because since all are from the infrastructure background and working inside VMware backup, and as well as you're also working inside the migration part, you want to know how to push your data or push your other things inside cloud. So most of the companies have been started to migrate their data from their on-premises hardware to the cloud computing infrastructure. So you need to know what cloud computing is all about. Most of the students, like whenever I speak to students when I'm teaching, they'll say that cloud computing is under one single domain, but it's actually not the correct definition of it. But because once we get into the cloud domain, cloud computing, there are a lot of schemas which is available, lot of infrastructures is available. Based on the infrastructures, based on the schemas, we are supposed to provide a correct actual definition. And lots of people will say that it comes into one particular part, and it's not the correct answer, right? So we'll discuss about what cloud computing is all about. And secondly, we're going to get into the different certifications in AWS Cloud. But because now people have been said that since you're working in VMware, since migrations were taking part in your particular company, you are supposed to know about what particular certification pathway I can take so that I can be a successful person in that particular domain. Since you're going to be working in migration, you need to know what are all the services which is available in AWS Cloud, and moreover, for which service we can for one particular task, what service we can able to use, and based on the service, what type of architecture we are supposed to deploy, and to make sure that the service is going to work properly or not. And thirdly, we are going to work on different job roles in cloud and the salary ranges, so that based on the certifications and based on the cloud, like the pathways, what we're going to see, there are different job roles in cloud. And we also discuss about the salary ranges. And finally, we're going to see what CDP network is going to provide. What is the batch, what I'm going to take here. And as I said in the beginning, there are two batches I'm going to take. And based on the batch and based on the outcomes, what we're going to get from the batch is important. Right. So I would say that what cloud computing is all about, the talk of the town, right? Okay. So first and foremost thing, since I've been seeing that, since I've been seeing that a lot of candidates are working in the migration of your data, right? And people are using VMware. So the thing is, since you're not moved into the cloud environment too, right? Why? Because once we talked about once I learned about what cloud computing is all about, I can't able to understand what cloud computing is. Why? Because it looks similar to what are all the services we have used so far and what the computing technologies I've learned so far. It looks like much more similar to it, and I can't able to see a mere difference from what cloud computing is. Then I started to learn a lot about I started to learn deeper into it, and I get to know about the key insights about cloud computing, right? So the first thing is all about, right? So I don't want you to show you these things, right? So this is nothing but a simple web, what can I say, the service request, request and response thing. But because as a client, what we'll do is nothing but we'll request a server, and based on the request, what we are passed, we're going to pass the request to the server. And once the server has taken those things, and the server will process the request and provide us with the response. So the communication pathway, what we're going to provide inside is going to be inside the network. And how the server will have is how the client will identify the server will be using the IP address over there. And how the server will identify the client will be using the client's IP address, which is going to be the identity of the client. So this you guys already know why, because it's a basic overview about it. But I wanted to say another thing, right? I wanted to say another thing. So what is all about this server? Why? Because this server can be of two different types. One is all about the on-premises, and another thing is all about it can be a cloud server. Okay, let's talk about what on-premises is and why we need to transfer that into the cloud. Okay, so first of all, what a server is composed of, as you guys know about it. So first thing, it contains the compute. That means which contains the CPU, which contains the memory, the RAM which is needed, and the data. Like what? So we are supposed to store the data inside server, right? So that once the request has been passed, we are supposed to provide a proper response based on the request has been passed and the database. In servers, we can have all the three different types of database. Can be structured data, it can be semi-structured data, or unstructured data. That is, we can able to have an what can I say, an RDBMS, and we can also have a semi-structured or an unstructured. Like it doesn't have any unstructured structured like documents, and for an unstructured, we can able to say a NoSQL type. Also, we can able to have inside. So this all depends upon the use case what we are solving. For a particular use case, we are supposed to use RDBMS over there. For a particular use case, we are supposed to use a NoSQL database, which contains a key value pair. And for another thing, we are supposed to store our data in terms of documents, right? So we are supposed to store the entire document as one data. So that comes under the unstructured bit. The last thing is very important is all about the network. Why? Because we need to have the routers, the switch, and the DNS server. So the routers, what it will do, so it will be acting as a particular pathway, which will take the IP address and will find the destination IP address, and will also find the shortest path to reach the destination IP address, as you guys know, since you are in the networking part too. But what is the faulty thing behind this thing? So these are all the things which is present inside the on-premises data centers. Why? Because we are also already talked about it. It contains two different things. We can able to have an on-premises server, and we can also have a cloud server. So what on-premises server is already composed of is all those the same thing. But what is the faulty thing behind it? Let's give you an example. Let's say that I'm going to build a company, right? I'm going to build a company called as XYZ. Let me give you an instance. I'm going to build a company called as XYZ. So where this XYZ is going to be a company which takes all the users' data and provides recommendation systems to the users, right? So it takes all the users' data. So now I have to store all those users' data inside my server. Why? Because I'm supposed to store the user data in a kind of database in my server, right? So now I'm supposed to deploy a server in my company. So the thing is, what I'm supposed to pre-install everything, right? I'm supposed to do with the pre-installation, right? The thing is, I'm supposed to choose a space where the server can be installed, and I'm supposed to choose the memory type, how much memory I'm going to store. Why? Because everything should be known in advance. So the first thing is all about I need to have a what can I say, the place where the what can I say, the server is going to be installed. And the second thing is all about I'm going to need to know about the memory in advance. This is very, very important, guys. But because you are supposed to know the memory in advance, so that it's very important. Once you know the memory in advance, you can able to buy the required amount of memory so that you can store the data. But we can't able to predict the memory at the nearest itself. It's very difficult, right? But because it might lead to the what can I say? It can overcome the memory requirement what we already chosen. So it depends upon the place where you store. It depends upon the memory and as well as the cost of it. So deploying a on-premises physical server inside a company might be costing you a lot, right? So you need a space, you need a memory, you need an what can I say? You need an you should know a memory in advance so that you should buy that particular thing. And third thing is all about the cost of deploying it. So these things, like if you only if these things get satisfied, you can able to deploy a physical server inside a physical server in your company. But I would say another. So these are nothing but the faulty things. Why? Because the place. Why? Because if I'm going to start a small company and then this place is going to be a very huge factor for me. Why? Because I don't have any place to deploy my server, right? And secondly, is all about memory. Why? Because I don't know about what type of memory requirements I needed to push my data, as well as the cost of it. Why? Because since it is very small company, I'm going to start a company newly, and the cost of building the what can I say, building the physical server is always a challenging task for me. So looks like all those things are a faulty things for me. Yes, looks like all those things are a faulty thing for me. So how can I resolve it? How can I put it to another dimension of installing a physical server into my company, rather installing my physical server into a company? So that's where we can able to say another dimension of the computing has been came over, which is called as cloud computing. Okay, so that's where the other dimension came over is called as cloud computing. Now, so what cloud computing is all about? Why on-premises data centers has been replaced by the cloud computing, and why major companies have transformed from the on-premises data centers to the cloud servers, cloud data centers. That's very important, right? Okay. Now, let's get into the part of what cloud computing is. Now, I already said that thing. So, since we do have a server in physical mode, okay. So, I'm gonna have a server in physical mode where I also have store some data inside it. Now, what is the thing? As I already said, we need to know about the place, we need to know about the memory in advance, and we need to know about the cost. So that these are going to be the faulty things what we have discussed so far, right? These are going to be the faulty things we have discussed so far. Now, the thing is, how we are going to make sure that, like, let's take it into part. How can we resolve this all those faulty things into a how are we going to resolve all those faulty things? Now, that's where cloud has been introduced, or cloud has been what can I say? It has been improvised. Right? Let's see how. So instead of place, right? If a company needs a physical server or needs not a physical server, if a company needs a server, then I don't want to deploy a physical server inside my company itself. Rather than I can provision or I can request for a cloud-based server. That's very, very important. Yes, I can for the cloud-based server, where this cloud-based server will provide us the instance. Like I don't want to say the service name, so this is not the name. So it will provide us the instance, and the instance will consist of the OS, the networking part, what are the networking, the subnets and VPCs, what it is needed, and as well as the storage of everything, right? It just gives us the storage too. And as well as it also gives us the load balancing techniques too, if the load has been increased. Okay. If the load has been increased to the server, it also gives us the load balancing techniques too. And if the So we can also see that auto-scaling groups is also being increased. Why? Because if the number of requests to the particular server has been increased or decreased, or we cannot able to determine that at a particular point of time, then we can able to say we can also, the cloud server will automatically provide us the scalability or provide us the scalability and the elasticity through the auto-scaling groups. So I can able to see the place has been reduced. I can able to see, like, let me change the color of it. So I can able to see that place as well as the memory has been already resolved, right? Why? Because everything is going to be provided by the cloud. Yeah, like I don't want to know, don't want to care about the place. I don't want to care about the memory which is needed by, because everything is provided by the cloud. Now, what is all about the cost? This is very important, right? What is all about the cost? So, as I already said in the beginning, to deploy a physical server, you need to know the cost in advance, right? How much memory you are supposed to know. Based on that, the cost will be determined. But in terms of cloud, it's very easy that cloud is going to give you another payment method called as pay as you go delivery. As you already get into this term, so pay as you go delivery. What is pay as you go delivery? That's very simple, guys. Okay, what is pay as you go delivery is nothing but You start the service. Based on the amount of service you have used, you are supposed to pay for it. You don't want to pay in advance for any service what you're going to use, right? And most of the cloud computing services provided by the Amazon Web Services are free tier, and some of them are paid one, and you can use it. And after using it, you are supposed to pay for what amount of thing you have used it. So you don't want to care about the cost in advance itself, and you can just use it. And please make sure to know about all those things in advance to make sure that if you know those things, make sure like once you start using one service, and make sure to know what are the criteria and billing terminologies available in the services, then you'll get to know about what is all about the pay as you go delivery method, and you can just pay as what amount of things you have used so far. So I can able to say the faulty things what we have discussed so far in the physical thing, like the place, the memory, as well as the cost, has been resolved by the cloud computing paradigm. So now I can able to say how these, how all those things has been provided, how the instance has been provided, based on the instance, the operating systems, the networking, how the storage has been provided. The cloud has their associated geographical locations, right? The cloud has an associated geographical locations. Guys, you learn about all those things once you get into the batch. Like geographical locations are the very important thing. You'll know about the AWS infrastructure. Why? Because once you get into the batch, you'll know about the different types of infrastructures, stating from AWS backups, AWS edge locations, AWS availability zones, AWS regions, etc., and etc. And you learn the key difference about all those things, right? Since when you get to know about the key difference with all the AWS infrastructure, you'll get to know about how the cloud computing is providing us all those services without without the user constraints, like without the user doesn't want to know about how much space is going to require, how the memory is going to be required, and what is going to be the cost, right? Okay, now let's get into the part of it. So as I said, right, let me erase this thing. Okay, so what is all about cloud computing? As I said in the beginning, most of the candidates are like, I've already addressed most of the candidates in my thing. So what actually they say is nothing but cloud computing is nothing but the storage. They say that cloud computing is providing us gonna provide us the storage. But what actually the cloud computing is not that, I would say, is not only the storage. It is gonna provide all the IT resources what is needed for us, right? And moreover, it's gonna provide all the IT resources on the basis of on-demand delivery. Based on the demand, what the users are providing, it is going to provide us the delivery of the IT resources. What are the IT resources? You can able to say the database storage, applications, computing power, etc., etc., and etc. These are the IT resources what the cloud computing is going to provide. Please, guys, if you have already know what this cloud is all about, please delete that the thing what you already know about cloud, which is nothing but only providing of database or only providing the storage. Please forgot that thing. But because cloud computing is not only going to provide us only the storage part, it is going to provide all the IT resources in a virtualized manner, where you don't want to deploy anything inside your on-premises or in your physical medium. Just everything is available inside cloud. Just everything is available in the virtualized manner. So that's what the name given as the on-demand delivery. Based on the demand, what the users are providing, the cloud computing is going to provide us the resources. Based on the resources, what you're demanding is also depends upon it, right? And through a cloud service, as I already said, you're going to have pay-as-you-go pricing, and you can provision exactly the right type and size of the computing resources you need. As I already said, based on the type as well as the size of the resources you need, you are supposed to demand to the cloud computing, and the cloud computing platform is going to provide you the resources what you need. And you can access those things, and we can have what can I say? So simply way to access our storage. Does anyone want to ask anything? Hello. Is it everything okay here? Okay, sure. Right. So there are simple way to access your servers, storage, database, and other set of application services too, where you can make use of those things, right? As I already said, It's going to be providing you the database storage. It's going to provide you other storages too, not only in the terms of databases, not only MySQL services as well as NoSQL services. It's going to provide you another dimension of your storage part too. And you can start deploying your applications directly. And you can also what can I say, lend a platform for deploying your applications. So you want to know about the services which is being used at the particular point of time. Right. So what is all about, as I already said, why preferably AWS? So as you know about it, I wanted to give you much more deeper into it. And as you know that I'm being on a by recognized AWS Cloud Captain, and I've been searching a lot of stuffs and making sure to how to provide AWS as the most significant one in the computing technology as well as to the into the today's market, right? We're able to see that AWS, the pricing of it, right, compared to other cloud providing platforms, the pricing is more comfortable to the companies, right? Why? Because the pricing is not so heavy, and the pricing makes sure that it is trying to provide you the convenient way for the companies to suit up for the particular use case what they are working on it. Secondly, is all about the companies will pay what they use. So there is no upfront cost. So not only for AWS, there are other what can I say, cloud providing platforms too. The companies don't want to provide any upfront cost for their building their infrastructures. But with AWS, it is going to be much more simpler way where the companies will pay only for what they use, right? And building simple, scalable, and robust services. Why? Because since I've been there in AWS for the past, what can I say, almost for the last 3 years, like I'm been learning and doing projects in AWS. I could able to see that AWS services are very scalable as well as very easy to use as you go much deeper into it. And once you get to know about your own environment, like once you get your own AWS management console, it will be very simple. It'll be very, very simple. Like everything is going to be drag and drop. But as I say that as an IT professional, as well as you're an IT student, please make sure that don't use a management console for your practice. Right. So once if you want to be a beginner, you can use AWS management console for your practice. But once you start getting much deeper, and provide and doing a lot of use cases, please don't use a management console. Come to the part of deploying your applications with the help of AWS CLI or AWS CLI using the command line interface or through any programming interface by writing a scripts in Terraform or any other programming languages. Right. So we'll get to know about it. I'll try to push you everything in the batch what we're going to learn about. Why? Because I'm writing scripts for almost a lot of use cases, and I've already written scripts. So I'll provide you my ID so that you can just look into it. Right. So comparatively, AWS has more services and more features within those services. Why? Because according to the current scenario, AWS has 200 plus more services ranging from the compute level, storage level, networking level, serverless, machine learning, and more. Why? Because I would say that so far when I started to use AWS services, AWS last 3 years before, I could able to see that a lot of ranging of services in the different categories. Like I started with the compute level, provide like creating an what can I say virtual server for my particular application. Then I moved into storage services, and I tried to use 3 different types of storage and DBMS, like RDBMS, that means SQL type of service, and NoSQL type of services. Then one more cloud storage services. Then I moved to networking part. I tried to create my new VPC with the subnets and etc. and etc. When I moved each and everything, then I tried to move the entire thing without using the server. Like I moved to entirely serverless. Then I able to learn about each and every difference behind it. Then finally I landed with machine learning and can able to see there are a lot of things which is available over here in Amazon. Right. In AWS is going to preferably giving you more than 200 plus more services. And I wanted to give you another info that every services will not be available in every regions. But because in India, there are two data centers available. One it is in Mumbai, another one is in Hyderabad. So based on the regions, you are supposed to AP South one, and Hyderabad is not deployed inside our AWS management console. Can able to see, but it has been working for that particular point of view. Can able to see how far it has been developing. AWS is going to, so you can able to see how based on the services what you're going to use, based on the infrastructure, based on the architecture what you're going to build, you can choose the region based on that, right? Okay, but that is also there is also one constraint where you're supposed to choose the region. That we'll cover that in the batch, and I'll try to put a lot of architectures, a lot of infrastructures for you to make sure to provide you a complete background how far when you're starting to give when a use case is given to you, how can you provide a complete architecture and how can you automate this complete architecture. That is very important for you, right? Okay. Now, as I said, what are the different AWS certifications you need to know? Okay. What are the different certifications you need to know? So far, so good, right? Is there any things you're supposed to ask? Is there any doubts? Like candidates have any doubts for so far? I think so. You can unmute yourself and you can talk. I think so. It's being shared.
I have a question.
Okay.
While in a batch, you are going to focus onto the VPC, then all transit gateway, as well as the load balancing. And
Yes.
when we are deploying a firewall in a high availability, then how to deploy those kind of a architecture. Uh, all those things is going to get the cover into the depth to design the architecture, because we as a pre-sales, we need to design the architecture for the customer. So we would like to understand whether it is going to have going to get into the depth information.
Um, Almost, right? Why? Because it depends upon the level what you're learning, right? Because there are different levels of AWS certifications and different levels of AWS proposals you're supposed to know, right? So there are two batches we're going to conduct, and for the question what you've asked, right? And I'll try to answer that the last one, because once you know about the key outcomes of those batches, you'll get to know about it. And based on the batch you are choosing, right, it also depends upon it. Why? Because for most of these things, like let's give you an example. For the AWS Developer Associate, the same services what you have learned in AWS CCP is needed for your AWS Developer Associate. But the thing is, in AWS Developer Associate, we're going to learn something which is much more deeper into it. Why? Because for that thing, you need to know something deeper, right? So that's what the major difference. So you'll get to know about the answer for the question once the last slide, what I want to make sure to. So after that, I'll get to know about how to answer, right? Because since you're working in the pre-sales, right? So
Right, right.
yeah, go ahead.
No, right. I said right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right. So let's continue this. So what are the different AWS certifications like you like and beginner to the AWS cloud computing you need to know? So there are almost 13 AWS certifications, and actually it is 14 because one of the beta versions has been included right now. So first is all about the AWS cloud practitioner, the very important, the foundational level of cloud foundational of the cloud is being given through in the thing. As a beginner, I would recommend you to take the AWS cloud practitioner certification resources. Try to learn each and everything, try to get the hands on, and once you have get mastered into it, I would suggest you to go. There are a lot of different domains, a lot of different streams where you can able to go ahead, and I'll also share you the link for that. Please try to look into it and you can get to know more it. And once after the AWS certified cloud practitioner is done, you'll be putting that into the developer associate, right? Where the developers might use this resources which is available inside the developer associate. Then they'll start developing their own applications, right? Third thing is all about solution architect. Like I'm sorry. So third thing is all about AWS certified solution architect associate, where the solution architect professionals will try to work on the basis of providing CI/CD pipelines and developing their applications through DevOps practices. So they also have a professional level certifications too, right? So they do have a professional level certifications too. And moreover that, they can also take up another professional in based on DevOps, which is AWS DevOps Engineer Professional too, right? And we have Data Engineer Associate, and we have SysOps Administrator, and we also have the advanced networking specialty, and followed by that some of the other specialty things where we're going to make sure to know about it. The first thing is all about networking specialty, data analytics specialty, like database. You need see supposed to be get depth into a database. You're supposed to take the database specialty, and this is for the machine learning candidates who have been already taken, and security specialty, and finally with SAP things too. So this thing will come under the foundational level, and these things will be coming under the associate level, and these two will be coming under the professional level, and finally all those other things will be coming under the specialty level. Based on the domains what you're going to choose, you can choose the particular certification. But as you've been the beginner for it, I would suggest, or I would already always suggest that please try to take the CCP level certification, then get into the base of it. Why? Because directly going inside AWS networking specialty or AWS data analytics specialty is not going to be the major part what you're going to work, right? So like making directly going inside AWS database specialty, or putting into, what can I say, without knowing the basics of AWS services, you are going to much deeper into AWS services, right? So once you know about the basic of services, then it will be easy for you to cover what are the things is there inside the particular specialty level, associate level, or professional level certifications too, right? So which certification I need to do, right? That's very important, right? Because as an IT professional, as a beginner in IT professional, and as an, what can I say, new buys in IT professional things, which certification you need to do? That's very important, right? This is what I would like to suggest to you. If you're new to tech, please try to take the cloud practitioner as a foundational level. But because this is not given by me, this is given by actual AWS people, actual AWS trainers and AWS instructors. Once they have to new to be once they need to take that, they are supposed to take the cloud practitioner level as the basic certification. Then after completing the cloud practitioner level, once they need to, they'll come to know about what role they are in. They can able to choose their particular certification pathway. And if you're going to be in related business roles, I would suggest that since you are going to be in the sales or marketing or other business roles, right? Most of them are in the pre-sales department, right? So you're supposed to provide the architecture, the infrastructure to the into the customers, right? So before knowing into it, you are supposed to know about what services you would use to use in the particular architecture, right? So for that, certified cloud practitioner knowledge is very, very, very important. And IT professionals, if they have 1 to 3 years of IT or STEM background, right? Or make sure that they also know about some of the basic services which is available in cloud practitioner. Then they are get to know about it. They can directly go for the associate level certification. They can align their interest in roles. So I think so. I think I've answered for the question which has been asked a little bit. Why? Because what certification or what pathway I should choose, but what CDP is going to provide is going to be the major answer for the question, right? I'll get to know about it. Right. So these are the different job roles, guys. So starting with the solution architect, as I said, for the solution architect job, you are supposed to take the solution architect certification. And for the application architect, they'll create the application architecture, including the user interface, middleware, and infrastructure. It all depends upon the services what you're going to use for the infrastructure, right? So for one type of service, one type of use case, we are supposed to know about what service will be suiting at particular point of time. Let me give you an instance. If I'm going to create a use case, right? This use case wants to create an application that takes data from the users and want to store the data inside the database. That data might be I'm trying to make sure that that data is in the form of username and password. So now I want to store this username and password inside the database. Now, link thing, whether I need to use a NoSQL database for this thing or SQL database for this thing. If I start using NoSQL database for this thing, my accessing speed will be much more higher. Why? Because I don't want to write a query over there. I just want, since it is going to be a key value pair, if I give the key directly, then I can able to get the pair. But if I go for the RDBMS, right? So if I'm going to go for the SQL type of services, then I have to choose one of the MySQL or any other MySQL, PostgreSQL, etc., then I'm supposed to choose that particular database service, and I have to store all the data inside my databases. So by providing that in terms of relationships, but the thing is, in terms of NoSQL, there is no availability of relating two or more tables at once. But in terms of SQLs or PostgreSQL, I can able to relate, I can able to relate more than one table with the help of keys, what SQL is going to provide to us. So based on this comparison, based on the knowledge what we have based on the databases, we're going to choose that particular database service which can be part of that particular architecture. That's very, very, very important. And the third thing is all about the cloud data engineer, where they'll monitor the entire data pipeline, and they will work on the processing and the collection of data, both semi-structured, structured, as well as the data store. Then they'll work on software development engineer part. As you guys know, as you go around the platform, they'll start construct they'll develop the what can I say, softwares across the platforms and devices. And system administrator. System administrator is all about, they'll try to push your computer components, they'll try to install it, try to upgrade your computer components. Why? Because more like in the company, there may be different departments, right? For each and every department, lots of departments will be working on one particular use case, and this use case might be combined with another use case, etc., and goes on. So they are supposed to make sure that what type of services they are using, what type of infrastructure what they're using, whether all the infrastructure what they're using are automated or not. The system administrator should make a call over there, and they're supposed to install or upgrade the computer components which is needed for them. Then the cloud engineer, where they maintain the infrastructure, and they'll also implement the security systems to maintain the data safety too. And you have the testing engineer, where there are lots of tools inside, like provisioned inside the cloud computing platform to provide you the test tools, and which can help us for the SDLC cycle, so software development life cycle. And the cloud DevOps engineer, but because since I already said at the beginning, like there are a lot of certifications for DevOps. So to maintain your CI/CD and to maintain your DevOps pipeline, you are supposed to be a cloud DevOps engineer, DevSecOps engineer. Like DevOps plus security is going to be the DevSecOps engineer and cloud security engineer. Why? Because security is always very important in terms of cloud computing. Why? Because they are supposed to make sure that whether the data which is present inside the cloud should not be released somewhere else. Only to the identified authority that particular data should be present, right? And network engineer, like they are supposed to, they are going to design and implement the cloud, the computers and the information networks such as the LAN, WAN, and MANs, etc., like that. Then machine learning engineer. What the things is they'll start to deploy a machine learning application. They start to create a development machine learning application, but they want to deploy they want to deploy that into the real world market. So they're supposed to provide an end pipeline. That end pipeline should be attached to the cloud. So they'll try to use the services. So these are the different job roles which is available in cloud. So I think so based on the job role, what you are working so far right now, I think so which thing is being more suitable for you, right? Can be a system administrator at material part, or it can also be a cloud engineer. Why? Because since you have been working in the sales part, you can also be putting your infrastructures, and you can also communicate to your users too. But you're supposed to know what services to be used in the particular way, right? So what are the salary ranges, right? That's a very common thing. Why? Because when I started to learn about cloud, and I was recently attending a conference in cloud, one major company's CTO was talking inside the conference. He said that, so we can able to see that in all the companies, right? Cloud has been one of the major part. Why? Because every companies have started to use cloud. Why? Because to authenticate the users who are using the cloud, using their product, and to authenticate the employees who are working inside the company is also dependent. But because instead of using a physical server to maintain all those things, what they can do is but they can deploy everything in cloud. They can migrate the data entire thing to the cloud, so that with the help of queries or services, they can they can easily manage this data which is present inside, and they can also prevent the data as quick as possible, as easy as possible. And as part of the employees who are working, and as part of the users who are going to use the product, they can easily authenticate it, right? They don't want to, clearly sit and like checking each and everything about the users, checking each and everything about employees is not needed, but they can go directly for the thing. So when able to see the scalability of the cloud computing has been increased, right? They can start from these things and make sure to provide a huge background towards that, right? So according to the pay scale, the cloud engineer, the cloud solution engineer takes an average salary, which is being displayed here. And according to, so average salary ranges may be different, depends upon your experience also, guys. Why? Because experience speaks about how far you're deploying your application, how far you have been using cloud services in your architecture is also very, very important, right? So why? Because once the experience has been gained, once you have started deploying your applications for the use cases, you might come to know about what type of services can be used at what particular point of time, right? That's very, very important. And it also based out of the location too, but because like if you're based out of Karnataka or based out of Maharashtra and based out of Tamil Nadu, you might able to see that the companies using cloud may be different, right? We can't able to predict that in advance, right? So the companies that use clouds may be different, or they can also use their own cloud too. Why? Because recently I was talking to one of my friend who's working inside cloud. I don't want to mention the company name. He said that I don't use cloud, or I don't use AWS at all. Why? Because my company provides their own cloud. They try to use it. But the knowledge what I gained through AWS cloud certifications, AWS cloud training, is gave me another dimension of it. And I can able to see that through the knowledge what I gained from the AWS part is very helpful. And I can able to see I can easily start to migrate to my company's cloud. Right? Everything is all about the underlying what you're gonna take it from this thing. And this is about the upgrade source from the upgrade and how the salary ranges is all about. Now, this is what the thing is. Now, let's see what is there for you, right? What CDP networks is going to provide. CDP network is going to provide 2 tracks of learning for you. One is all about AWS certified cloud practitioner, and where inside AWS certified cloud practitioner, you'll get to know about the introduction to AWS and introduction to services. I'll almost cover 42 services. If I'm not wrong in numbers, I'm going to cover almost 42 services inside AWS cloud practitioner series, right? Where we'll be covering the server-side computing, where one of the important service in AWS certified cloud practitioner is Amazon EC2 Elastic Compute Cloud, where we are also taking that part inside the cloud practitioner. Third thing, we'll be learning some database services. But as I said in the beginning, for the cloud practitioner level, what type of database services and how much you're supposed to learn the database services is very, very important. So we'll be covering only the small part of database services, which is needed over here. But we'll cover all the services. But the thing, in terms of cloud practitioner level, we'll try to put you in a particular comfort zone. I don't want you to take you to the much different scale about database services, right? Thirdly is all about the cloud integration. How we're going to integrate your cloud and how we're going to monitor the services inside the cloud, the VPC and networking, the basics of all about it, right? The VPC networking, the basic of all about it. Why? Because since you're new to the cloud, right, you need to know about what are the networking tracks which is available inside. What are the VPCs options which are available inside? How can you monitor the services which is available inside the cloud is also a very important thing, as well as how we're going to integrate your services. How we're going to integrate your major part of the service is also very important. So once you get into the basics, then it's going to be very easy for you to deploy your own architecture stuff, right? And you'll be learning some other computing services which is available in AWS. And I'll be touching you some I'm going to touching you some small topic behind security services, advanced identity services like management services, which is available in AWS, and followed by like the names and the functions of the AWS services, which is available in AI ML part, right? And account management, we'll be talking about account management also, which is also a very important part, the billing dashboard. How can you forfeit the budgets which is available inside AWS? Why? Because as I already said, guys, you are supposed to know about the budgets. Why? Because as a part of cloud computing learners, you need to know how can I put that particular, since as I said, since as you asked, right, how can we provide a solution to the customers? Once you want to provide a solution to the customer, you're supposed to know the budget in advance. You're supposed to provide that budget to the customers. Why? Because only when the customers get to know about the budgets, they'll try to, okay, for this services, I need to have a budget in advance, or not budget. I need to have a budget, right? I need to, if I want to use this architecture, okay, this amount of this cost is going to be spending for me. So this type of clear understanding to the customers should be provided by you, since you're working in the pre-sales. So only when you know about how to work on those budgets, then only you can able to provision that thing. And AWS architecting an ecosystem, where I'll be providing the 6 pillars of AWS architecture, and that's very important for your cloud practitioner exams too. And the second track of learning, what we're going to provide is AWS Certified Developer Associate, where this is going to be the next part of the AWS Cloud Practitioner. Okay. And what I'm going to learn is nothing but the next side of EC2. We're going to learn about the Route 53, which is going to act as a DNS services. And we're going to learn about how to use the CLI, and we're going to learn about the VPC fundamentals, and I'm going to give you much deeper insight what you're not covered inside the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. And database in AWS, a complete guide. Why? Because here we're going to learn the entire database services which is needed. Why? Because you need to know everything, every services which is needed in database, and make sure to provide a complete track of it, for which it is storage type, what type of database services I can able to use it. And third thing is all about Docker and deployments, where you'll be trying to deploy your applications inside AWS, and how to Dockerize your application inside AWS by using containers, registry, etc., etc. Then you'll be learning about CloudFormation, monitoring and integration in AWS, the same part of it, but you'll be learning some new things extra inside the monitoring and integration too. And the thing what I have not covered in AWS Cloud Practitioner will be covered here in AWS Developer Associate, which is called as the serverless in AWS. So far you have learned everything in server, right? EC2 is server. Some of the database services is also in server. VPC, networking, cloud monitoring, everything needs server inside it. But it also have another dimension. What is going to be the serverless? Is there any services available in serverless? Yes, it is available. And right now, serverless computing, serverless cloud computing is being other, what can I say, other fascinating roadmap of cloud computing, right? And you may be able to see there are a lot of conferences happening for serverless, and it's been another outstanding, what can I say, technology which is available in cloud computing too. And we'll be learning about CI/CD, the continuous integration and continuous delivery. You'll be learning about the CDK, EBS volumes, and the cloud friendly. So EBS volumes are nothing but the EC2 fundamentals. You'll be learning that from the EBS volumes too. And as far as you will learning about the advanced identity, and also we're learning about the one of the major servers called as Cognito, which is being used in mobile application framework too. And security in AWS. Not so far what you have learned in Cloud Practitioner. You'll be learning much more deeper security in security services, security architectures. How can be one service can be used in one architecture? That all depends upon that, right? And other services in AWS Associate, like there are some other services, but doesn't takes much things to. So these are the two tracks of learning the CDP networks is going to provide us to. And what is all about? After this course, after this batch, like the batch 1, right? After the certified cloud practitioner batch, I would say that you're all going to be a certified AWS cloud practitioner, right? Because you've learned the entire thing, what it is needed for this thing, right? You have said you have know about what is the basics of cloud, and come to know about what is the important characteristics of cloud. It is all about get to know about AWS management console and hands-on with new things, and providing you the management service is also very, very important. Why? Because since you've been a part of the thing, you need to know how to log in inside your company, how to log out from your company, what are the security measures taken over there, and what are the devices going to handle inside the management is also very, very important, where we'll also cover that in the cloud practitioner. And you'll be learning about integrations, monitoring, everything what we already said. And you'll be learning about the architecting ecosystem, where you'll learn about all the 6 pillars of AWS Cloud. This will provide you a major upgrade from what you are so far, from the what can I say, from the on-premises part to a cloud engineers. And you'll be learning some server-based cloud and database services, and entire overview of it, Why? Because I'm not going to leave any services here. I'm going to complete the entire services, but I would say that I'm going to give you an overview of entire services. It's going to be a server-based cloud and database services. What are you going to get into it, right? So after this course, once you pass the examination, you'll be getting an AWS certified cloud practitioner. And this is the badge which is provided by the AWS. We're getting a certified cloud practitioner thing where you can able to say, yes, I'm a certified cloud practitioner. I know all those things which is from here, right? So now what is going to be the second batch? What are the things you're going to learn from the second batch? Once you have been masterized, that means when you have been provisioned with the second batch, you can complete the entire series. You could say that I'm the certified AWS cloud developer. I'm a AWS developer too. Right? I have also know about the basics of cloud. I know about the cognitive and advanced identity. Why? Because I'm specific. Cognito is nothing but Cognito is one of the basic services which is being used in AWS developing associates. Right? You'll learn about the entire serverless AWS. You'll get to know about what are the but let me want to say that you learn about DynamoDB, etc., etc., and etc. Learn about the entire serverless services which is available in AWS. And you'll learn about deployments where you'll start deploying an application inside AWS. You'll start knowing how to Dockerize your application in AWS. You know about how to find your DNS, how to find the shortest route to your particular next server IP, right? Using the help of Route 53. You know about the advanced virtualized server providing service which is called as EC2 Elastic Cloud Compute. Elastic Compute Cloud or anything can be, right? So because so far, you've learned only the basics things inside the AWS certified cloud practitioner, but you need to know some advanced things inside AWS EC2, which will be provided over here. And as I said, the complete overview of the server-based cloud and database services you can do. So this is the batch which has been provided by the AWS training and certification. Once you pass the examination of the AWS cloud developers, you'll be an AWS developer associate, right? But I would say a note over here. To get excel in the associate exams, please complete the foundational exam. Please complete the foundational exam, which is nothing but the practitioner level. Why? Because to understand the entire thing, what you're going to take from the batch number 2, you are supposed to know the knowledge from the batch number 1, right? That's very, very, very important. So that's all about the presentation. And that's I think so. This candidates have learned something from this part. And now it's been open for you, and you can ask your questions. And I'm open to answer all of your questions. And one of the candidate has asked a question, right? How far you can whether the deployment architectures are used. Why? Because you're working in a pre-sales department. I think so. I've answered for your question. So based on the batch, what you choose is also important. Why? Because in the batch number 1, we're going to tell only with you the basics of cloud and basics of services, right? We'll be covering almost 42 services, if I'm not wrong in the count. But the thing is, how to deploy architecture will not be muchly, what may I say, how to deploy a scalable, efficient architecture will not be thought over there. Why? Because it is only for your basics. But when you come back to the developer associate, you'll get to know about another, what may I say, another list of services, and you get to know about a broader scope of the AWS cloud and make sure that, yes, so once I learned a cloud practitioner, I know only about these services. But once I came here, I can able to see another services can also be installed over here, and replacing those things. I can also enlarge my architecture so that the architecture would be scalable, efficient, and what you're going to provide to the customers is also very important to it. Right. So I think so. Answer the question based on the batch, what you're choosing, it also important. Okay. So the thing is open for you, and the candidates can ask questions so that I can answer. Okay. What is VPC? Okay, VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud, right? What the thing is, VPC actually, once you get into the part of it, right? For each and every services, each and every infrastructure, what you deploy inside it, you need to have a virtual private cloud into it, which is very helpful for you. Why? Because the traffic, what you're going to provide inside the EC2 servers, like we're going to we're going to create a virtualized server into it. You're supposed to know in advance about the inbound traffic and outbound traffic. We're also used to other more concepts over there, which is called as security groups and NACLs. But VPC will provide you a virtual private cloud for you, right? How we can able to say, like for one of the architecture, like providing one another private cloud, which is a virtualized one. So you'll get to know about all those things. Why? Because since you're a beginner, the thing will be making much more name, like without the name, you'll be getting much more deeper into it. But once you know about the entire hierarchical way, you'll get to know about, like, just get to know about providing a virtual private cloud for your application, what you're developing. And for the architecture, what you're developing, I'm going to create a personalized cloud for my personalized cloud based on the dependency. I'm going to create it. So for that, I'm going to use a VPC. Yes, on CCP level, you'll be learning the T2.micro. Why? Because we'll be practicing in T2.micro only. Why? Because it is only the free instance available on AWS cloud. Why? Because as you know, as you've been aware about that thing, and T2, there are a lot of instance type, and the instance types has been divided based on their other things too, right? Like if compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, etc., etc., etc. There are a lot of things available inside. So based on the use case, what you're developing, that type of instance should be taken over there. So, but here in once you've been a starting guide to it, T2.micro is going to be the practice session, what we're going to take over inside the batch, and we'll be developing or will be provisioning our cloud virtualized servers only through T2.micro services. If subnetting required in AWS, that depends upon the architecture. But because if you want to work inside ECS, like one of the Dockerized service, which is called as Elastic Container Service, there subnetting is very important. But one of the thing for the serverless thing, you don't want to need a subnetting. So that depends upon it. So it cannot be predicted at much advance, right? It depends upon the architecture and it depends upon the use case what you're working on. Okay, I think so. There is no questions so far. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining.